Good day everyone, I am Michael, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our presenter for today, Hope Anchors. Hope Anchors, M-A-E-D-E-S-Q, is a licensed special education teacher and 25 plus year litigation attorney. She has bachelor's degree in special education from Boston University cum laude, a master's degree in special education from New York University. She is a frequent speaker nationally and locally on educational law. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Hope.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. Today's topic is school discipline of students with disabilities, because the discipline of students with disabilities has an extra layer, an extra hurdle for schools, what I call an extra layer of protection for the students who have either a 504 accommodation plan or an individualized education plan, an IEP. So before we begin, I want to talk about the difference in the terms between suspension and expulsion. Suspension is temporary. Expulsion is the permanent withdrawal of attending school. In the case of expelled students, schools may refuse to admit any pupil who has been expelled from another educational institution or who's in the process of being expelled. So now when it comes to students with IEPs, they can have 10 FAPE-free days. That means a student who has an IEP can be suspended for up to 10 days in a school year. Then we get to a disciplinary change of placement, which I call COP. That occurs when a child is removed for more than 10 consecutive school days, or the child has been subjected to a series of removals that constitute a pattern. Okay, so for instance, you be the judge. If Johnny is suspended for 5 school days for stealing money, and then a month later Johnny gets into a fight, the principal wants to suspend him for 6 days, so that would total 11 days. Would this be considered a change of placement? That is not allowed. Can the principal suspend him? Well, the school would say these are very different behaviors, and so yes, the principal can suspend him for those 6 days. So what constitutes a removal? What counts toward those 10 days? If a parent is called at noon to take the child home, bus removal. In-school suspension, ISS. Stay in the principal's office with work, missing recess, lunch away from peers, that's the lunch detention. So who decides whether the pattern of removals constitutes a change of placement? And remember, the change of placement is a denial of FAPE. Okay, so for a child who is going to be suspended for more than 10 days, whether it is consecutive or whether it is a series of removals for behaviors that are similar, there is a manifestation determination review. That is the extra layer of protection before a long-term suspension or expulsion. So the determination to be made in an MDR is whether the conduct was caused by or had a direct and substantial relationship to the student's disability. What happens if it is not a manifestation and not due to a failure to implement the IEP? Then the student is disciplined as the same as a student without a disability, but must be provided services to progress toward meeting IEP goals. So providing services during disciplinary removal. The services that must be provided are those that enable the student to continue to participate in general education curriculum, although in another setting, and to progress toward meeting IEP goals. Okay, so what do you think? Do you think that this is a manifestation of how an MDR team would decide? If a student who has ADHD smoked marijuana, now what if the student who has ADHD was selling marijuana? Student who has a specific learning disability repeatedly cuts class. Okay, so the appeal of a manifestation, determination, review, or disciplinary change of placement is that the parent can file a due process complaint. Okay, what is the authority of the hearing officer or the administrative law judge in a expedited due process hearing? So stay put means that the educational agency, the school, must maintain the child's educational program until the placement dispute is resolved. Special circumstances. So in the law we have exceptions to all of our rules. So this is the exception to the MDR. A school does not have to conduct a manifestation, determination review, and instead can remove a child for 45 days. So serious bodily injury means bodily injury that involves substantial risk of death, extreme physical pain, protracted and obvious disfigurement, or protracted loss or impairment in the function of a bodily member, organ, or mental faculty. Okay, so a lot of this we covered already, disciplining students with 504s. So they have similar protections to students with IEPs, except that instead of a behavior plan, it's actually called the behavior management plan. They are entitled to, students with 504s are entitled to manifestation determination reviews, but a FAPE is not required during the long-term suspension and expulsions unless there is a manifestation. And there is no stay put. So here are a few more questions. What about charter schools? So private schools. Private schools do not need to comply with these laws. Can the school speak to my child without me? Yes. And so, can your child be suspended from online school? Okay, what do you do if your child keeps getting in trouble? Can they hit your child? So corporal punishment is allowed in a few states. Can the school restrain your child? So that is restraint and seclusion, and many states have rules and regulations on that. And then can they put their child in a room, which we call seclusion rooms? That's it. We are just about at the end. Just work with your school. I always tell parents to, just communicate with your school. You want to know how your child's behavior is and what you can do to help support the school. Make sure that the child is behaving in school and getting the help they need. Okay, thank you.
Once again, thank you, Hope, for the great presentation. So that does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you.